All right, everybody, welcome to another very special episode of the SuperHousePodcast. This is Andrew, as always, and this week we have a very special guest. It's my other boss, Mike Ezell. Mike is second in command at Fractured Effects, and before that he worked on Apocalypto, Dark Planet, Cabin Fever 2, 300 Part 2, Drag Me to Hell, Surrogates, The Lazarus Effect, and Alien vs. Predator, Requiem, just to name a few. I'm trying to get the ones that you were a mold maker on.
I don't even remember most of this. That was a lot of different shops.
And you were a mold maker, but before,
right.
This is a list of stuff that before you were a coordinator.
Yes.
Okay,
right.
We'll talk about the coordinator stuff later. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Maybe you saw that. All right, so I kind of want to go in order with you, a lot more than we did with Justin, actually. Maybe your life story a little bit first, if that's okay.
Oh, yeah, sure.
So you're from Oklahoma originally?
Yeah, I grew up in Oklahoma. When I graduated high school, I went into the Marine Corps.
Okay.
Spent 4 years there. I lived in Japan for a year.
Oh, yeah?
And then I came back out here and met my wife in California. So when I got out of the Marines, we just stayed out here.
Okay.
And I became a police officer for a few years, 14 years.
14 years?
Yeah. And
wow.
then it took me that long to realize what a crappy job it was. Maybe I'm not too smart.
Can you talk about that on air?
I think I just got burned out. I got tired of cleaning up other people's crap for a living. And, I had a friend killed in the line of duty while I was there. So I think I just finally burned out on it. A lot of people do.
Was that even worse? I mean, I don't know about to say worse, but like it was a little bit rougher than even the Marines were?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
I was in the military police, and I mean, you get a lot of crap on a military base, but overall, it's nothing like the civilian world. It's when you're in the police department on a base, there's a lot less crazy activity going on because, it's on base, and everybody's already under, the military code of justice and
right.
Discipline, within units and stuff. So you still get drunk people being dumb, and you still get the occasional, like a domestic violence call or something if people live
right.
on base, but you don't have near the crime level that's, out in the real world, so to speak.
You were in Pomona.
Yeah.
Pomona, California.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Is that known for is it live up to the meth name or?
At the time, it was really known for, late 89, 90. There was a lot of gang problems. Crack was still like the king of the street then.
You were here
meth
during
was starting to come up.
Rodney King riots.
I was, yeah. We had our own riots in Pomona.
Okay.
During that time. Yeah, it was nuts.
You had to handle all that, at least partially.
We got called in off duty. Everybody got called in for that, and so unlike LAPD, they just sort of cordoned off that whole area, and they caught a lot of flack for kind of just staying out and letting things go down. And we tried to sort of cordon it off and go in there and stop people who were setting dumpster fires and all that crazy stuff. That was a crazy time.
So I can imagine. You're like a kid in Oklahoma, and were there like movies that you liked growing up that like kind of planted the seed?
No, actually. I mean, I was a huge movie fan when I was a kid, and when I was a kid, this is how old I am. The stations used to sign off, and there would be one station that would play all night movies, and I would stay up all night just watching movies and stuff. But after I got out of police work, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And my wife actually had a friend, Tamara Woodard, who's a fabricator in the business. And she was working at Stan Winston Studios. Okay. And she said, hey, I can get you a job just kind of basically doing grunt work in the shop just to sort of, fill in between till you figure out what you're going to do. And while I was at Stan Winston's, a couple of mold makers kind of took me under their wing. A guy named Barry Crane. I was sitting at a table full of like 19-year-old interns trimming alien tentacles for War of the Worlds, the Tom Cruise version.
You go from the streets of Pomona to doing
sitting among a bunch of 19-year-old makeup school hopefuls or something, whatever, and we're trimming alien tentacles, and Barry Crane walked by, and I was 36 years old, so I was obviously older than everyone else in the group, and he kind of looked at me and he went, what the hell are you doing? I said, I'm trimming alien tentacles, man. He goes, yeah, fuck that. Come with me. I'm going to show you how to make molds.
Okay.
So that's where I started learning how to make molds.
Okay.
I was like, okay.
Okay.
And I just, I went from there. I went to Steve Johnson's Edge Effects and Spectral Motion. That was like 1, 2, 3, my first 3 jobs in the business. Were at pretty, obviously well-established shops. People in Stan Winston's would come up. It's a general thing when you're in a shop and you see somebody new, you kind of ask them, well, so where else have you worked? Yeah. And they would come up and ask me that, and I would go, oh, I don't know anything about this business. And they would go, what?
Yeah.
Do you know how long it took me to get into Stan Winston's? I'm like,
right.
Oh, sorry. What
But
do you want me to say about
police
that?
and Marine resume probably helped in some way or another. Or no?
I don't think so. I think, in fact, when a lot of people found out what I used to do, they were kind of like, oh, like they didn't know how to act, or
weed's not legal yet, man.
Yeah, exactly. People didn't really know what to do with that. So actually, it did me no good whatsoever until it came to the coordinating end. But
okay.
where I had to learn from scratch. I had to just start. I went from making whatever it was at the time, over $30 an hour as a cop, to $12 an hour at Stan's.
Yeah.
And then just slowly work your way back up again through your rates as you work.
But you definitely were like, I'm not going back to being a cop.
No.
Okay.
Never. That wasn't going to happen.
Okay.
Whatever else happened, that wasn't it.
It's just too much, huh?
Yeah, I was all done with that.
Okay. All right. Going back for a second. So you went into the Marines when you were 18?
Yeah, I was 18.
And you did 4 years?
Yep.
Okay. And you were in Japan for a year of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
From, what was that? I think that was 87 to 88, I think.
Okay.
That I was in. And then I came back here and did another, I think I had a year and 10 months left on my enlistment.
Okay.
Got out in October of 89.
Okay.
So that was, that was interesting.
Did you have any culture shock? Did you go off base any?
Oh, yeah, of course. We were at a little air station in a place called Iwakuni. Okay. And it was like you walk out the front gate and you're in the main, what they used to call the Ville, where a bunch of shops and, of course, bars outside of military base. That tends to spring up. And, Japanese people like to get their party on anyway. So there's plenty of bars and clubs.
Work hard, play hard.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much, yeah. Did you didn't have like any culture shock or anything like that?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, for me, I was kind of fascinated by their culture anyway. So,
right.
And when you go to a foreign country, you got to kind of blend in with their culture is the way I look at it anyway.
Yeah. That's a good outlook.
Yeah, I mean, it's their country.
Yeah.
And we were briefed, don't screw up off base.
Right.
If you get put in a Japanese jail, we're not going to come. We can't come just get you out of jail.
Right.
So don't be stupid.
Right.
The Japanese police, they didn't play. They were unarmed at the time.
Yeah.
I think they may have a few armed officers now, but
they got revolvers.
Yeah. They had little collapsible batons at the time.
Okay. Yeah.
You would see their white helmets come bobbing down the street through the crowd. Oh, here come the JPs. We call them Japanese police.
Okay.
Yeah. And they didn't play games, man.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, you've been to Japan.
You're in their country.
Yeah, exactly. It's their culture. It's their country. I mean, they were good to people. They know. Yeah. If you're out in a bar getting drunk and being loud and something, they're not looking to throw you into jail for that.
Yeah.
But they will have you, taken back to base.
Right.
When I was an MP, of course, so when I was on duty, we drove the van out there more than once to pick up a few Marines and airmen and, people out there kind of screwing up. But yeah, I mean, it wasn't crazy culture shock. I thought it was really cool. I honestly wish I had been a little older when I went.
Oh yeah.
Cause I was 19. I was
Didn't
interested
fully
in
appreciate.
partying. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I gotcha. You were military police.
Yeah.
What got you into that exactly? I thought you were K-9 unit or something.
I was. When I went in, I did really well on my test. It was funny. The recruiter, I walked in, I had long hair. And, I was a young kid. I was like, hey, I want to join the Marines. And he was like, yeah, okay. Snake. Yeah. He's like,
kidding.
Okay. And he goes, here, go take this test and we'll talk when you're done. So I came back out with the test, and he was reading the newspaper, and he goes, well, you got a question? I said, a question? No, I'm done. It was like a super simple, junior high level reading comprehension stuff.
Yeah.
And I was a pretty gifted student. So I just went, well, I'm done with this. He says, give me that. He puts the answer key over it, and he's like, oh, you missed one. He's like, okay, and then he gets all interested in talking to me. And he said, look, of course I was 18. I was like, oh, what's this recon Marine thing? You're all thinking you're going to go high speed, low drag,
right,
some kind of crazy special ops stuff. And he said, well, look, here's the truth about recon. You have to enlist in the infantry and then try to get into recon. So basically you have to go in as a grunt.
Right.
And he said, I don't know, if you want to, fine. He said,
right,
but I have an opening in the military police. It's a good unit. It's a good job. He said, just looking at your tests and stuff, I think you'd enjoy that a little more.
Okay.
So I was like, oh, I didn't know what he meant at the time, of course.
What is military police, right?
Yeah. So, I went into the MPs, and while I was in MP school, I was an honor graduate out of my class, so they let me interview for a K-9 position.
Okay.
And that year I got the last bomb dog that was slotted for the Marines.
Okay.
Because at the time, all branches trained on Lackland Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas.
Okay.
So all the branches were there, and the dog slots were sort of assigned to each branch.
Okay.
And I got a bomb dog slot, and I wound up staying there in school for almost a year.
So you were MP and then bomb dog?
It's the same.
Oh,
K-9
okay.
officers are attached. MP, the MOS number for MP used to be 5811.
Okay.
And if you went into K-9, it would just be 5812.
Okay.
So I'd still, like when I came to Pendleton, I had my dog in the car, normal marked police car and everything.
Okay.
So it's just like being a civilian cop almost.
Okay.
Like I said, a little less activity.
Okay. Okay. Were you you were just before Kuwait, or was there any major operation while you were in?
It wasn't a whole lot going on. Obviously there's always something going on, but we were not in any major conflicts at the time. I think it was a little more laid back view, at that time. So yeah, by the time I got out in '89, I had pretty much just sort of gone from base to base, and we didn't deploy to the Middle East or anything like that.
Okay. Just before it got a little bit crazier.
Yeah.
All right. Is this where you got the nickname Buzzsaw? What is, for the listener, your nickname is Buzzsaw?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
It was, yeah. In the Marines, they called me Easy because of the first two letters of my last name.
Okay.
But I got out, and I was on training, and of course, I had already been in the military police, so I knew how to use a baton. We used the side handle, the PR-24s, based on a tonfa.
Okay, yeah.
In the military. So when we came out here, we had what they call straight sticks, a straight baton.
Okay.
In Pomona. And my very first big encounter with that, I was with my training officer, and he spotted a guy he knew who was a heroin addict and a burglar walking through a construction site. So he said something to the guy out the window.
Okay.
What's the guy's name? Jerry or something. Hey, Jerry. And boom, the guy took off running.
Okay.
So he's like, we got to, and I'm on training. My FTO jumps out of the car. We got to get this guy.
Here we go.
So we chased him, and my FTO I'm not the fastest guy in the world.
Yeah.
Far from it.
Yeah, yeah.
But the guy was wearing cowboy boots.
Oh, okay.
And my FTO was a big power lifter dude, so he was slower than me.
Okay.
And
Gotcha.
this guy ran into somebody's house, kicked the door into somebody's house.
Holy crap.
And he was going to run all the way through, but he screwed up and ran into a closet. And so he had to turn around and come out. And by the time he came out, I was coming through the front door.
Yeah.
And he kind of squared up on me with those cowboy boots on and tried to kick me. So I drew my baton, and I must have hit him in the lower legs, 10 or 15 times in the span of a couple of seconds.
Yeah.
I was all hyped up.
Yeah.
First time I'd ever been in that.
Oh, man.
So I didn't think anything of it.
Is your
hit him with the
adrenaline
baton.
going like insane at that time?
Thundering, and you've got people screaming because you're in their house. This guy just randomly broke into a house.
Right.
So afterward, my FTO, unbeknownst to me, had started talking about the incident to other veteran cops. And he's like, yeah, come through the door, and there's Ezell in there like a buzzsaw, going at him with the baton, hitting him, across the shin. And so the dude fell down, and we arrested him and everything. But that's where it came from. Then I started hearing that. I'm like, what? Rudy, what did you call me? He's like, buzzsaw. Because I have a really long torso and short legs, they would call me the Tasmanian devil.
Oh, okay.
So that's what, my email address comes out of that.
Okay.
That was funny.
I knew you're Marine and police officer. I was like, this Buzzsaw name has got to be from this time.
Yeah. That was from my FTO.
All right. So you come back from the Marines to Oklahoma. You were never a police officer there.
No, I never went back to Oklahoma.
Oh, you never did once?
Nope. Okay. I left and never went back.
Okay, copy that. Yeah. All right.
I was kind of estranged from. I had already moved out of my house when I was in high school.
Oh,
so
okay.
there was really no reason for me to go back. So I just stayed out here in California.
Okay.
When I got out, my wife was from Reseda.
Okay.
We got married and, moved down to Oceanside, and that was it.
Oh, Oceanside's awesome.
Beautiful.
I like
Beautiful
Oceanside.
place.
I wish the Amtrak could come straight from
all
there.
The way. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
It was nice.
Yeah.
And my son's stationed on Pendleton now, so we get to go down there every once in a while.
It's
so much cooler down there during the summer. Even though it's hot, you're right off the ocean.
Yeah. Really good beginner surfing there too.
That's what I heard. People used to come on Pendleton all the time to the trestles.
Trestles is not beginner, but it's not super advanced either.
Yeah. We would see them all the time. They would just come and sign in at the gate and come on base and go surfing.
It's definitely like known for that.
Oh, that's cool.
For sure. Yeah. A lot of good spots there. So you're a police officer for 14 years in Pomona?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then do you want to talk about any differences between Oklahoma and California? It's just a normal like city versus country.
Yeah, and I mean, I lived in Lawton, which was a pretty decent-sized city. We had 3 major high schools there. It was a pretty big city. It wasn't like a big culture shock for me to go somewhere else. I didn't live in like a tiny little town with one stoplight. And
I did.
Did you?
Until I was 13, I lived in a town with literally one traffic light. About 1,000 people. So I tell people I'm from Alabama or Georgia or both because I went to high school in Georgia, but everything before that was Alabama for me.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it's a little weird timing for me, but yeah, the time in Alabama was one traffic light, and then Georgia was a little bit more like we were closer to Atlanta, and so it was like it was like just outside the suburbs.
Yeah. So you had the city right there.
Yeah, a lot closer.
Well, I used to spend all my summers in West Texas with my grandparents in this little spot in the desert called Van Horn.
Okay,
it's like 120 miles east of El Paso. And that's a tiny little West Texas town.
West Texas is where it gets really country, huh?
Yeah,
they always make that difference.
Hot, and it's more of a kind of a desert-like environment out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was different, and it's a little conservative town.
Yeah.
So that was a different experience, but I think Lawton was big enough that it didn't really make a difference to me when I got to bigger towns.
Okay, all right. It says on your IMDb that you were key grip in 1980 for something called Hangar 18.
That was not me.
That's not you.
1980, I was probably in the 9th grade.
Okay.
See, that's the thing I keep telling people to use Michael on my credits because I think there's another Mike.
But the rest of it was right, though, it seems like.
Yeah.
So,
it's weird. IMDb is kind of weird that way.
So
I don't update my stuff. So all the stuff you see on there was put on there,
somebody
through credits.
Else.
Yeah, I don't keep it up.
So 1979, in the search for historic Jesus is not you.
No. Let's see. I was 12 then. No.
I thought maybe you got like a super early start and then went into the service.
No. Wasn't me.
All right. Okay. So let's get to the effects stuff finally.
Cool.
Okay, so you told us how you got into effects pretty much was via, what was the person's name again?
Tamara Carlson Woodard is a really well-known fabricator.
Okay.
she's she's made tons of different monster suits. She's done puppeteering. I mean, I think she was at Stan's for a pretty good while. And you know this industry, you hop from place to place, you get laid off.
Right.
But she had a lot of experience, and she's a really good fabricator.
Okay.
And she was friends with my wife, so she said, hey, honestly, I'd never thought about it. I had never thought about getting into this business. So it was just kind of, I fell into it by accident.
So you left police service and being a police officer, and you just had no idea what you're going to do.
Nope.
Absolutely nothing.
I was absolutely done with that. So,
okay.
And that, that's what happens. I think it's a smart thing to do. If you feel yourself start going in that direction, just get out of that, because there's so many cops that, you go down the line, they wind up committing suicide from PTSD, or there's a lot of alcoholism in that business, and divorce.
Right.
I was, like I said, I guess I wasn't very smart, because it took me 14 years to figure that out.
Well, some people never do, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. You were a mold maker for 300 Part 2? No, you were coordinating.
Yeah, I was coordinating then.
What about Apocalypto?
Apocalypto, I was a mold maker, and I came in to see, this is how it kind of works. That was, what's Greg Canham's old shop? Captive Audience.
Captive Audience.
That was Captive Audience.
Nice name.
It was it was a cool little shop, but I think Greg was long out of it by then. And someone else was running it. I went over there and worked for 2 weeks and molded the monkey.
Okay.
A couple other things because they needed extra help. But the weird thing is, not long after that, I received a letter from the studio. Everybody did, saying, hey, we're missing stuff, basically, and if you have access to any of it. And I was like, oh my God, but then I looked at it, I realized it was a form letter that went out to everyone, and I didn't know squat.
Okay.
And I was still really new, so
okay.
I was just like, well, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to let those guys worry about it. And then it kind of came out that I don't know the whole thing, so I'm not even going to speculate.
Okay.
But there was some weirdness there. The business was sort of taken over, and the studio came in and said, hey, we're kind of taking over assets or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, that was a weird experience.
But you made a monkey for it mainly?
I remember molding one of the monkeys. I think they did some puppets, when the monkeys are trying to come down into that pit or something. I forget the scene. They were also making those enormous tapier testicles.
Okay.
That you see them,
they eat it in the beginning or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. I kind of like how that opened up, though. Like, it's kind of a big joke.
Yeah.
Like, you think it's going to be kind of a serious historical epic, and it is mostly, but it's like a big, joke like that in the beginning.
Yeah.
Which was pretty cool.
There was a lot of that. I don't know. I think they were working on another show there at the time, but again, from being here that there's 3-4 shows going on at one time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was Apocalypto. That was my experience with that.
Okay. Yeah, it's weird. We worked on a Scorsese movie briefly.
Yep.
And it was weird because, whenever the person was in, it was like, oh, I guess I'm working on a Scorsese movie this hour. And then and then the next hour it's totally different. And
exactly.
I haven't changed my environs. It's it's just but technically right now I am working on a Scorsese movie.
That's right.
It was pretty cool feeling, actually. That wasn't your first mold making position?
No. So I started at Stan's, and oddly enough, I had just come from a serious, when you're in a management position in a bureaucratic place like a police department or whatever, it's a different environment. So I came here and right away I see, supervisors yelling and cursing at people on the shop floor and calling them names. And I was like, oh my God, what is this place? You know?
Yeah.
So I kind of got into it with the mold shop supervisor and made it really clear that I wasn't going to take that kind of, verbal abuse. I said, I'm not sure, but I don't know much about this business, so I don't know why everyone else is taking that from you, but I'm not going to do that.
Yeah.
So there was the mold shop supervisor from Steve Johnson's Edge Effects really didn't like the supervisor from the other shop.
Okay.
So one of his friends called him and said, "Hey, there's this new guy here, and he just like got into a big thing with the supervisor over here and told him off." And
I like that guy.
Yeah. So he said, "Have that guy give me a call." And he gave me a job.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I got my second job because I got into it with a supervisor at my first job.
That's pretty awesome, actually. Yeah. What was that second job then?
Man, what were they working on?
Surrogates?
No, that was K&B. God, what was that first show at Edge Effects?
Dark Planet?
No.
Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell was also K&B.
Was
those were both at the same time.
Alien versus Predator?
I don't remember which Steve show that was, but this was unfortunately right before Edge Effects kind of folded up.
This is Steve Johnson, right?
Yeah.
I've heard so much about this guy. I've never met him. Don't know what he sounds like. Apparently he's got a higher voice.
No, well, everybody does this. It doesn't sound like him, but everybody does Steve like this. Yeah, screw you guys, you know.
Okay.
And they do the cigarette smoking thing.
Yeah. It's not that high.
Yeah, it's not that high. And, you know, I mean, I got there right at the end of all of that. You know, I wasn't there for the crazy stuff that went on in the 90s. And
apparently it was wild.
That's what I heard. It was pretty wild. And it just sort of, I think it kind of all spun apart while I was there on one last show. We're working on a show called Unearthed. This kind of a low-budget monster show.
Sort of familiar. I feel like I've heard of that.
There's a couple of Unearthed.
Oh, okay.
One of them, I think, has Savini in it.
Okay.
And that's not it.
Okay.
And then this was just some crazy monster show. And someone told me, you know, oh, hey, like next Friday is probably going to be it for this.
Okay.
And I noticed like the shop was looking really deserted. And I said, well, what's going on? I said, I think the shop's going to close down. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But that's when Christian Beckman and Justin sort of formed Quantum out of the ashes of Edge. They basically bought out, you know, equipment and some molds and stuff. And that's where Quantum was actually kind of born.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, it was nuts.
So you were there even for the formation of that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was a mold maker then. First big show they did was Watchmen.
Right.
And I was a mold maker on Watchmen. That was, oh my God.
You get a copy of the Watchmen, like this is our storyboard. That's what I heard. Like Snyder would put copies of the Watchmen graphic novel in people's hands.
Yeah. I think they did that, like with Justin and Christian, of course. The rest of us, you know, when you're on the shop floor, you don't see that stuff.
Right.
So we had to make those big suits, and that was nuts. Casting up, they would sculpt the suit for them.
Yeah.
Then we would mold that, and we would cast up a 1630 urethane copy of the suit.
Okay.
And then the body shop guys would polish that thing until it looked like a mirror. I mean, those things were amazing. And then we would do a hero mold.
Okay.
And then that's what makes the suits look so shiny or know, super smooth and metallic when you paint them. Man, that was a learning experience because I had never worked on it. Yeah, I had never worked on a big costume show like that before. I mean, I worked at Spectral Motion, but not in, you know, like having hands on the pieces like that. That was my first experience, you know, going through the superhero suit thing.
Right. This is just the beginnings.
Yeah. Crazy process.
Did you feel like you picked it up well when you were doing this? Because it was a totally new skill set, right?
I did okay. I mean, I like working with my hands, so mold making was kind of cool. There are some guys like, you know, Rob Freitas, who can just think in the negative. Like, you know, they see the mold in their head. And I am not good with that. You know, I know the process. I know how to make a good mold. It's just going to, you know, obviously it's going to take you a little longer than it takes Rob or you know, some of these experienced mold makers out there.
Right.
So, you know, it took a while, and it took a while to kind of realize what this stuff was for and how each step of the process can really impact what comes next.
Okay.
If you screw up a mold, you know, and you've got a little damage in the piece, that means somebody like Steve Kuzla has to come in during the seaming process and fix it, hopefully.
Right.
So that, you know, the learning curve there, as I started to learn more and more about how important each step was.
Right.
I think that really helped me later on, as a coordinator, to understand. Hey, I can't. We can't rush the mold part. We can't rush this part or that part because, if somebody makes a mistake, then it just screws us every other step down the line.
Right.
So that was it was an interesting learning curve.
What was the last thing you were mold maker on before you became a coordinator?
I was working at Tinsley Studios. I think we did. What did we do? The first season of American Horror Story, Riddick.
Okay.
The last Riddick movie where he's stranded on the planet with all the creatures.
Okay.
We did the creature and a couple other things. I think Adrian Moreau did the bodies and stuff for it, if I remember correctly. So it was one of the shows over at Tinsley's. Did quite a few shows as usual. There were a few things running through there. But then while I was there, I got a call from Justin, and he said, "Hey, he had already established Fractured and done a couple of the James Wan shows, out of his garage, and then he had that little place in Pasadena."
Heard about these days.
Yeah. And so the 300 sequel was like the first big show where he was going to need a lot of space and a lot of people.
Right.
So I came back over here and started coordinating for him on the 300 sequel, and just been here ever since.
Do you like that more than mold making?
I think everybody likes things more than mold making. You're grinding fiberglass and you're using all these urethanes and different things, and the resin for the molds. I always tell guys, you use your safety equipment. Don't let some old macho dude say, you don't need that respirator or whatever.
In my case, specifically my case, I'm not in front of it a lot because I'm the photographer.
Right.
But I don't even want to be around it that much. And I know I might be thinking about this too much, but I haven't had kids yet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe there's no science showing that it does anything anyway. But just on the safe side, there's a lot of crazy chemicals here.
Yeah. A lot of those things will go to your reproductive system.
Right.
So, use your safety equipment, man. Put the gloves on, put the respirator on, use your glasses, because there's a lot of hazardous materials, in this business.
Right.
In a lot of businesses that make stuff like this. So, I never minded it. You just throw on a suit and go in there and grind. It doesn't bother me. But
you were a full Tyvek guy, like Alan?
Yeah, you got to put your suit on if you're going to go grind.
Yeah.
I found out that way, the hard way, because I think I put on. I was at Jose's shop, Ironhead. Yeah, and he didn't like a lot of the traditional resin stuff because that stuff's it stinks something powerful.
Yeah.
So we were experimenting with the UV resin that you roll out in the sunlight.
Okay.
And it starts to kick off. So I made a mold out of the UV resin, brought it in, grinded, did all my stuff, and I was just wearing my normal clothes.
I've heard about this.
Yeah. And then I was driving home, and all of a sudden, my eyes started watering, and I was like, what the hell? What's wrong with me? I was driving into the sun, and I looked down, and I had all that little crystalline stuff on my shirt, and the sunlight hitting it was like kicking it off a little more or something, because I started getting I had to take my shirt off while I was driving. So I was like,
you had to be that guy.
Okay, none of that. I'm not going to do that again.
That's the other thing too. A lot of these techniques are still like that was probably totally new. Or you're one of the first to do it, right?
And when I was
at the beginning stages.
Yeah, and when I was at Stan Winston's, syntactic molds were like a big, we're going to make a syntactic mold. It's kind of a secret process, and it was brought over from aerospace, and now everybody does it.
Okay.
So, I started learning there, and but all those resins and the different things that you use, and the fiberglass and all that stuff, it's a dirty kind of... I don't want to call it a thankless job, because it's incredibly important, and I do think people recognize it. But sometimes people don't. Sometimes people don't understand how important the mold making step is. That informs everything else that comes after it.
I think, most people, especially, the way I was, I knew sculpting and painting was part of it. Yeah. Because you see that a lot on the specials and stuff, but mold making is honestly...
It's not exciting to show,
It's not exciting enough to show. You won't get it immediately.
Yep.
You need an explanation. So I feel they're just pretty much thankless.
Yeah. And when you see that, a big clay blanket laid over something with the keys on it, with
Yeah.
the strips of clay that are keys, you first look at that, you're like, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
It's a piece of clay with a bunch of lines on it.
Right.
You don't understand that that's the negative of the jacket, and
Right,
you're going to pour silicone in there. So, yeah, I mean, it is really interesting.
Since you started, actually, you know what? Before that, how'd you meet Justin, the boss of Fractured Effects?
The boss. I met him really at Quantum. I think I probably bumped into him a couple times. I'm trying to remember if I had before that. But at Quantum, that's where I really got to know him. And I think early on, a lot of people weren't aware that he was a partner in the shop. They thought maybe he was just the art director or something.
Right.
But the more I got to know him and see the way that, he really cared about the people who were working there. And I'd worked at a couple of shops where that wasn't the case.
Okay.
I worked at other shops where people were great. I mean,
Yeah.
I had a fantastic time at like Spectrum Motion, for instance.
Okay.
But I did, I got to know him there, and they gave me a chance to coordinate shows there for the first time.
Okay.
And that kind of fed into the old training that I had, not necessarily as police work, but the management that goes into it.
Dealing with people.
Right.
Right.
Dealing with people.
That must be like
getting everyone grouped together and going towards the same goal.
Yeah.
That kind of training, they give everyone that training at some point, like in the military and on a police department, because they don't know who's going to stick around for 30 years and run the joint later. So they kind of train a large group of people.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So I had some pretty decent experience with that. And I remember talking to him back then, Christian Beckman, the other partner in Quantum. He said, is there anything else you want to do besides mold making? Because everyone always tries to transition into other jobs and learn new things.
Right.
And I said, look, I don't paint or sculpt. I don't have those abilities. So
Right.
There's a guy named Fernando Favela who was the coordinator. And I said, I'd like to do a job like Fernando's. I think I could handle that. And he said, ooh, are you sure? That's a lot of paperwork. And I said, yeah, think about where I just came from. And he's like, oh yeah, never mind.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
Filling out crap in triplicate. There's not a lot of paperwork in this business comparatively. He was talking about writing out budgets and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
But once you get through that,
right,
it's not a paper heavy job.
Right.
So,
it must have felt like a watered down in some way. I mean, dealing with stereotypically anyway, the egos of certain people's involved in this industry, but you were dealing with probably meth addicts and all kinds of crazy shit in the other jobs. So it's just probably a different level. It's probably like, oh yeah, I can handle this shit, right?
Yeah, and this
is nothing compared to where I was.
And you just I had to realize, I'm not dealing with a platoon of Marines here. I'm not dealing with a bunch of cops. So I'm dealing with a bunch of artists. And if you go out there and yell at them, they're going to shut down, because they're not in that same emotional mindset.
Yeah.
They're not expecting someone to come out and jump in their ass.
Right.
Even if they need it,
which
sometimes they do.
Right.
But I think I did okay. I don't really think anyone has ever not liked working for me.
Fractured's fucking awesome, man.
We try to treat people well as long as you're doing your job. I don't need to get in your business. I don't need to stand over your shoulder. You're a grown up. You've quoted me a rate. You've quoted me some experience that you have for doing this job.
Right.
So I'm going to let you do it.
Right.
And if it comes to my attention that you're not living up to that, then we'll deal with it.
Right.
But otherwise, we try to, hire really competent artists and let them do their job.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's the best way in an environment full of artists,
Yeah.
Most of the time you just sort of have to pull back the artists from arguing with each other.
Oh, right.
I want to do it that way. No, I want to do it that way.
Right.
Yeah, I get it, but
artists want freedom. Well, everybody does.
Everybody does, but
artistic freedom.
Yeah, artists, I think it's tough for the artists in this business because you're handed a design.
Yeah.
And, you've been in this long enough, it changes from day to day, or the director comes back 3 weeks after we've started and says, oh man, I really want to, take another look at this.
Right.
So I think that's tough on some of the sculptors because they're doing someone else's artwork and recreating it.
Right.
So, I experienced early on, there were a few people who kind of want to do their own thing. And you have to express to them, this is not your thing. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
But this is not your project.
Right.
It doesn't matter whether or not we like the design, you know, as an artist. It doesn't. Your thoughts on the design don't matter because someone else chose it. Someone else hired us.
Right.
We hired you. It's commercial art.
Okay.
For lack of a better way to look at it, it's commercial art. So you have to.
Yeah, it is.
You have
for
to make
sure.
the client happy.
For sure. Movies are some of the most commercial art.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably the most. Actually, graphic design, if I remember hearing this, graphic design is probably the most commercial. But movies can't be too far behind.
No, because it's all,
everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, there's us. There's the set decoration people. There are the people who build all the little moving devices on. You're putting all this artwork into this one big thing that is hopefully going to make a lot of money on the other end, for them.
Right. I mean, in the case of superhero stuff, too, that's popular lately, it's like, if you deviate too much from that stuff, you're going to have a bunch of fans going crazy over it. Like, it has to look like the source material. Yep. Even, like, it was totally CG, but, like, the Sonic movie recently, like, they had that almost done, and they redid the look of the main character.
Yeah, because everyone hated it.
The backlash of the fans.
Yep.
Like, that's the state that we're living in right now.
Yep, pretty much.
Did you have, like, a favorite movie that you worked on?
Oh, man. I don't even know. I mean... I do. We had a lot of fun on Sucker Punch. That was one of the last things I worked on at Quantum. Last thing that Justin worked on at Quantum. That was the one time that I actually went to set.
Okay.
They needed an on-set coordinator to track all the. Man, we had orcs and all the demon German soldiers, and we had so much stuff coming in and out of there that Justin went up there and kind of ran the makeup end of things, and I would just basically coordinate the shipments and make sure we had all the stuff there on time.
Right.
Cleaning up, make sure the
all
masks
the
were being
makeup
sanitized.
Pieces on set that can get lost in the fray of the shooting day.
Logging in what's coming in and all that, but most of the time you don't do that. Most of the time you're not going to see that on set. If you're not an artist who's actually working on something, that's not going to happen.
Right.
But that was cool. It was in Vancouver. Vancouver is beautiful. It's a gorgeous place to be. The shoot was fun. The sets were unbelievable. Zach's crew is always super cool. I don't know what it is. He surrounds himself with good people.
Right.
We've had experiences on some shows where it's positive, it's negative, but it was all positive working with those guys. He just surrounded himself with great ADs.
Okay.
Even the PAs. I mean, everybody on that show seemed to be really cool, really in line with what Zach was doing.
Right.
And we worked together. I thought we worked together really well. There wasn't a lot of crazy arguing going on and all that.
The stunt dudes that we've met through here for Snyder stuff, they're pretty much ride or die for Snyder. It's like they got some loyalty going on.
Yeah. And he's been doing so many action-oriented films for so long, and he's had this kind of same group of guys. That was really cool too. And getting to see them work out the scenes. Right. And they had for the dragon sequence in Sucker Punch, they had a big set, like a partial gate, and then, it was complete blue screen or green screen all the way around, and they had this huge stack of mats that sort of went up like a pyramid up to the top. And I remember Zach getting up there and flipping off of it and landing on the things the stunt coordinator's like, oh geez, don't do that.
I think he does like push-ups and stuff on set. I didn't know he did flips.
Well,
and all
he had the guys who do the Navy SEAL training and
Jim Jones?
the 300 training program they called it at the time. So he had those guys on set, and they would work with the stunt guys and the actresses. The actresses would come in and work out. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool. I know the name is Jim Jones, I think. GYM.
Well, they were the trainers are, and at the time I think the stunt group was still called 8711, but I think it's something different now. Okay. I don't think those guys are still with the same group, but I do remember. Like, sometimes this show business has a lot of stories about directors going, whatever, get me a new stunt man.
Right.
Matt Rigetti came rolling down the stairs in his orc outfit. And, he sold it. He rolled down these stairs and he hit the bottom and his head went over the end, his neck cranked back and he just laid there.
It's like, dude, are you okay, man?
Yeah, Zach went, all right, cut. That's it. No more.
Okay. All right, good.
We're done. No. I got it.
Yeah.
So, he watches out for his guys.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah.
They really like him. It's from what I gather.
And that's why.
Yeah.
He cares. And he was like, all right, that's it. That looked a little too crazy. No more.
Yeah.
So
your neck.
I think that's one of the reasons, they love him so much is because he cares. He gets them the proper training and the time to do it. Yeah. That's important.
Moving close to the end here, but you're also a writer?
Yeah.
Did you have a book published?
Well, that was published through Kindle Direct. But I've had a bunch of sci-fi short stories accepted into anthologies and things like that. I was in an anthology called Fantasy for Good, and I saw the listing for it and sent them a story. They sent me back and they said, hey, yeah, we love your story. We're going to put it in here. And I just happened to look a little further into the project since he accepted me. And they were doing reprints by George R.R. Martin and Piers Anthony. Okay. And I was like, oh God, hold on a second. Let me take another look at that story. Let me do another pass on that.
Yeah, another draft maybe.
So that was kind of cool. And I've had a few other short stories and Orson Scott Card's Intergalactic Medicine Show.
Okay.
I had a story called Bare Knuckle Magic in there that was pretty cool. It's like a combination of MMA fighting and black magic. So that was...
Was this made into a show or anything?
No.
Okay.
I haven't. It's all, long form fiction. I've written a few screenplays. I think everyone in California is required to do.
Yeah.
You have to, I won some money through Amazon Studios for a werewolf project.
Yeah. Okay.
Won $20,000 through the first year that Amazon Studios had that contest.
That's cool.
Thing. Yeah, it was cool.
Hasn't been made.
No.
Okay.
So many projects got picked up during that time. Yeah. That initial Amazon Studio thing.
Yeah.
They hadn't even really, it was really new. Not like it is now. Amazon and Netflix and all these streaming services are just cranking out shows.
Yeah.
They were just starting to get into it. So
okay.
I don't even know if they were really sure what they wanted. They just had so many projects, of course.
A lot of money to burn.
You put that out on the internet, oh my God, you're going to get inundated with projects. So there was plenty of stuff up there for them to choose from. A friend of mine won $40,000.
Okay.
It was like $20,000 a month.
Wow.
I think that they were doing at one point.
This was a full feature, your werewolf movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was called Pack Behavior. That was pretty cool, but I kind of like the freedom of long form fiction.
More than screenplays.
Yeah, there's no one telling you, this is cool, but can we change the lead to a man from a woman? And I have had that on screenplays.
Yeah.
This is really cool. Can we make the lead a man?
Then you become a guy writing a woman.
Yeah, let me just go hunt. Find replace on Word.
Yeah,
and just change it from Andrea to Andrew. No,
right.
It doesn't work like that.
Right.
So that's long form fiction. You build your world. When you get a story accepted, you'll work with an editor a little bit, but they're more concerned about word count or maybe cleaning up an area where you repeated some.
Right.
But they're not trying to change your story.
Okay.
It's not a producer.
Right.
Who's trying
a lot more freedom.
Yeah, a lot more freedom. So that's I have fun. I'm still doing that.
What authors or books got you into writing?
Oh, man. Well, I started writing when I was a little kid because the school system I went through emphasized creative writing as English in an English class.
Okay.
We were constantly writing little short stories, 1 or 2 pages. But yeah, I read, my 8th grade English teacher gave me The Stand by Stephen King.
Okay.
And that just, blew me away. That was crazy. And then when I got into high school as a sophomore, I stumbled across Neuromancer by William Gibson.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Oh, my God. And that's, you look at that as a writer and you just go, oh, God, I'm never going to be like that. I'm never going to be that good. That guy's amazing. His language, everything, and cyberpunk, that genre just blew me away.
Okay.
I think that's probably why I write so much science fiction fantasy.
Okay.
Because I really loved it growing up.
There's some connection with that and effects work.
Oh
at
yeah,
least,
definitely.
You know,
I mean, that's, everyone here is a comic book fan, a sci-fi fantasy fan,
horror,
gaming. I mean, that's this industry,
right?
I almost felt like I was like, oh God, man, I feel like a fraud. These dudes are like, they know who wrote the music for this movie.
Right. I feel like that at times when it becomes like a big horror thing, because that's obviously horror is like the core of this particular industry. Although it's
a lot of it, yeah.
Like at least the history of it, right? Like Exorcist and before that, and all that. Like really, I think that's the core of this industry of the special effects makeup. Yeah. But there's obviously fantasy and most recently, superhero stuff.
A lot of superhero stuff. Yeah.
For me, I grew up mainly liking video games, and so like a lot of times I get like the Mortal Kombat feel in my head personally, like because that was like my horror growing up. Was I did watch horror movies, but the main thing in my life that involved a lot of blood and crazy characters was Mortal Kombat. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't watch horror's never really been my thing, and it's odd because I'm such a Stephen King fan, but I haven't read all his stuff either because I'm just not that big a horror fan. So I mean, when I got into this and people were talking about all these obscure horror films, and there were people who were into these old Italian horror films I've never heard of. Yeah. So that was interesting, sort of getting into that culture where everyone is so into that. Yeah. And, people wanted to hear like, what's the grossest thing you ever saw, when you were a cop? And I'm just like, I don't think you understand the horror of actually seeing a real person decapitated versus these things you're working on for a movie. Yeah. It's horrific. It's not, I really don't talk about it that much unless somebody asks me a question.
It's true horror, that stuff.
Yeah, it is truly horrific. Horror. Yeah, it is horrific, and it's not anything like, seeing this stuff here. So these young dudes are like, oh yeah, look at that, his eye popped out, and all this other stuff. You're like, I get your fascination with it, but it's horrible in real life. It's terrible.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah. But you're right. That's a lot of the horror movie stuff is where a lot of this is based, and gore gags. Everybody has a story about some crazy gore gag they had to make. Make it work on set for a low budget movie or something. There's a lot of that. But yeah, you're right. It's kind of moving into a different world now.
Fantasy's getting bigger too. I mean, we had Lord of the Rings, but like when I grew up in the 90s, like there was like almost no fantasy. Not until Lord of the Rings came out, and then that, and of course superheroes huge. People were trying that for years and didn't really hit until Iron Man 1. And then we had Dark Knight and everything. But
I think up until that time, to me, when I look back at those older movies, it's like no one took it seriously. It was always kind of campy, a little silly, a little over the top. And then, like you hit stuff like The Dark Knight or whatever, or even Watchmen.
Yeah,
Watchmen was kind of dark, and
it did kind of set the stage.
It wasn't a joke. It wasn't a crazy Batman suit with nipples on it.
Right.
I mean, the suits were still crazy, and it was, but I was like, oh my God, like a full-on sex scene in a superhero movie.
Yeah.
Who does that?
Yeah,
Zach does that.
Yeah.
I think I think it's better since it's gotten a little more grounded in, seriousness, a little more real, but it's still funny, like Thor, Ragnarok. And it's still fun. But I think it's changed for the better. We'll see how long that lasts. Something else will come along, and something
will change everything. More than likely.
And Disney owns everything now. So
that's a whole other. I don't know how much you want to talk about that one. So you did not write a Greek movie called Raiders of the Damned.
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought that. Okay.
The most, God. So terrible. I got hooked into a guy from Colorado, and I wrote a short for him. He had done some stop motion stuff, and I think we met through a friend of mine who was a writer. And so I said, okay, well, I wrote this little short film for him based on dolls that are in cases, and they come alive, and it's this crazy little short film. So he came back to me and he said, man, we really love this. In fact, we love it so much, and we've been talking about how much it would cost to make it and everything. We decided, screw it, we're just going to make a feature. So could I get you to write a zombie movie for me? But he said, I don't want them to be arg zombies.
Okay.
I have this different idea. So I was like, yeah, okay, all right. And I knew it was low budget.
Usually if it has zombie in it,
yeah,
it's low,
and
on
he
the low
was
side.
doing it out of pocket. So I hooked him into a casting director out here that I knew, and he actually got Richard Grieco to be in it.
Okay.
But then he would come back like, because we were trying to save, I forget why we went in this direction. We were trying to save money on bullet hits and stuff. He just couldn't do that, and he didn't have special effects. So we came up with these rounds that would, hit the zombie, and they had chemicals in them, and they would basically solidify them.
Okay.
They would solidify their body, and they couldn't move anymore. So he would call me up and he'd go, hey, I got this cool idea for a line. He shoots the guy and that stiffens him up and everything. And he says, I always knew you were a stiff, or something like that. And I was like,
my God.
no, that's terrible. But I guess it kind of went downhill out there on set. I didn't go out there. It was shot in Colorado.
Okay.
So I didn't go out there. And it was so bad that one of the SAG actors that he had coming out there quit. Like in the middle of the movie.
It was that bad.
So instead of calling me and figuring out a way to write out his character, he just
Shot
figured it out
around
on
it?
his own. No, I mean, he shot the guy's death, but it was totally nonsensical, and it was
Is this on Netflix or anything like that? Like, well,
I don't know. It was
Crackle?
on that. I think it was like a UK network, Bloody something, or it
like
was some little horror. Yeah, it was a
streaming
horror
or
streaming. No, well, not streaming at that time. But
Okay.
it was like a little network. But yeah. Bad,
did you ever see the original? Just the full thing?
I did. He sent me a copy of it. And like it started out, and I could just see I was sitting on the couch, and I just felt like I was sinking farther and farther into the couch as it went on.
That's cool, though.
But I mean, he
least
got
you got a
Richard
movie
Grieco.
made.
I think he paid him. I don't know. Well, maybe I shouldn't even say it, but I was like, oh wow, okay, cool. So you got Richard Grieco coming out there, and there were people who were supposed to be training on sword work and stuff because one person carried a samurai sword.
Okay.
And no, they did not train.
Yeah, they couldn't use it.
It does not look like they know what they're doing. But I mean, that was an experience. That's what I was talking about. Long form fiction versus screenplays. When you hand your fiction story over to someone, there's not a director who's going to just go, well, I'm going to change that scene.
Yeah.
And that's just the way screenwriting is. They will change it.
We were taught in film school, a movie's made 3 times. Once on the page, once on set, and once in the editing room.
Once in the editing room, yeah.
Yeah.
And, I mean, that's part of the process, but there's also, this business is filled with egos.
Yeah.
Filled with egos. And, I've known a lot of...
It's known for that.
Yeah, and I've known a lot of screenwriters through being a writer and going to different functions and stuff and meeting people and just listening to the horror stories of, like, not being invited to a screening or... so people have to put that in their contract. Hey, I get to go to the screening.
Oh, yeah.
But you're the damn writer. You came up with it. I would hope that you
exactly.
would.
Yeah.
But, there are a lot of egos. There are a lot of people who work great, writer-director combos who have great relationships. But then there are other directors who just come in and start gutting the story and doing it themselves.
Right.
I think there's a lot of pretty famous stories about Blood Rain.
Okay. What was that again?
The woman who played the Terminator, Kristana Loken?
This Rayne?
Yes.
This is like a video game movie, I think.
Yeah.
Was this
It
Bowl?
was. Yeah. Yuva Bowl, or
How
however you say his name.
Yeah.
And I watched, there's something called Tales from the Script. Have you ever watched that?
No.
Dude, you have to watch it.
Okay.
It's a great documentary on screenwriting and movie making in general.
Okay.
But they talk about that, and the person's, I forget who's talking about Blood Rain, but they were like, yeah, eventually the actors took a swing at it. They were just like writing stuff left and right, and I don't think that was a positive experience. But it's really interesting because I think I think Paul Schrader is the one who says that he was talking to Francis Ford Coppola I want to say it was after The Godfather, and he jokingly told Coppola, "Oh, dude, you can fail for 5 or 10 years now, and they won't have anything to say." He said, "No, I can fail for 20."
Oh, wow.
It was basically, because that's the way it goes. You have this enormous hit as a director.
Right.
And then, if you have a couple of clinkers out there, they still keep giving you projects.
Right.
Because you finished a movie, it came in, it won a bunch of Oscars, and it was great, and it made money.
Right.
So that's just the way it goes. But that Tales from the Script is a very, very good exposure to the writing process in show business.
Is it on Netflix or Prime or something?
Yeah. You can find it out there. And they were talking. There's a story about was it William Goldman? There's a story. It was a higher end screenwriter, and they come into the producer's office and they're like, what is this craziness? I'm hearing that this is being changed and that's changed. We're doing it for certain reasons. And he says, did you read the script? And the producer says, or the studio exec says, "Well, I was exposed to it." What do you mean you were exposed to it?
He saw the top page.
Yeah, exactly.
That's it. It's in the same room as the script.
And he hadn't read it. And I mean, that's just, you have to know that going in. If you're going to write screenplays, you have to know that going in, that once you sell it, it ain't yours anymore.
Yeah.
They're going to change it the way they want to.
Yeah.
And you just go, "Well, thanks for the paycheck."
At least you got your Hollywood screenwriter at that point, though.
I got my, I got paid, and you got to go on to the next project. But you should check that out. It's a good documentary.
All right. Is this pretty much it until you retire, or do you want to get more into writing, or what?
Yeah, of course. I would love to, publish a book and be able to write full time.
Okay.
But this is a great job, I love it. The thing about coordinating shows is that I get to see every step.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
When I was in the mold shop, you just work on whatever they put on your table.
Right.
I try to go out of my way and go out in the shop and show people pictures from set. And,
right.
Because you don't always see that stuff.
I don't even see it a lot of the time.
Yeah.
I mean, not every time, but many times. But yeah.
Yeah, and that's the way it is. It's compartmentalized, and you're in your department, and you don't get to kind of see it. So I get to go to meetings. I read the scripts and do the breakdowns. Watch the designs come in, do the sculpting, and it's kind of cool.
Is it fun going to those meetings, like with producers and stuff? Do you enjoy that?
It can be, like on a series. Once it gets rolling and everybody's like, halfway through the season, those meetings can kind of be like,
it's more dreary.
Everybody's in there like, I'm tired. Everybody's been working. But for the most part, it's pretty cool. You go in there, you meet the people. Everyone's always, of course, super excited about the project. It's brand new, and they're trying to get things off the ground.
Right.
And it's kind of cool to go in there and show people cool stuff that we've made and kind of explain the process, because nobody ever really seems to understand what goes into this.
No.
You guys can pull something out of the mold tomorrow, right? No, you cannot.
I wish I could lie about that.
Yeah, I wish I could tell you we could, but we cannot.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's so. Yeah, I think as long as I can stay in it anyway. I love the business. I like working with all the artists. And Justin is a great guy to work for.
Yeah.
It's a great shop. I feel like this is a good environment.
Yeah.
It's a decent shop environment, not a negative place to be.
No.
So I like it.
Yeah.
It's cool. It's fun. I can definitely see it, going on.
Maybe even expanding.
Let's not get carried away.
All right, man. Thanks for joining us, man. It's been awesome. You're the first guest we've ever had that we just know, that was like in the service. And
doing something else first,
Yeah, I know you probably wanted to talk more about effects stuff more than the other stuff, but I wanted to kind of go on that because it was different for our podcast. So, thought that'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, it was definitely a different lifestyle change for sure.
Yeah.
Because you're in that sort of conservative-minded group of people, and then you come out here into the most liberal-minded group of people that you can can think to meet. So, but it was pretty cool. I think it benefited me in the long run.
I thought about asking you about politics and stuff, but maybe we'll just leave that off the air.
Oh, dear Lord. Yeah. You and I probably think the same on that. So it'd just be a bitch session.
yeah. Maybe we'll leave it apolitical. SuperHouse.
Visit that later.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for joining.
Well, thanks for having me on. This was fun.
Yeah.
Cool.
Always
man.
good. All right. This is Andrew signing off. Thank you.